Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to helping individuals start, build, and operate successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax businesses. I'm your host, Roger Connect, and for more than 20 years, I've been working with accounting professionals, actually helping them do exactly that, giving them the tools, trainings, the confidence, if you will, as to actually offer quality accounting services and get paid what they're worth. Each and every week, I have on the show experts, individuals to actually help us work on our businesses, giving us insights as to things related to marketing, selling, pricing, tech stacks, staff training. We're diving into mental health, and today is going to be a great conversation about HR. This is something that I've been excited to discuss, something that I deal with in my own business, and something that I think a lot of us tend to neglect and set aside. So we're going to address that today. Rhamy Alejeal happens to be someone that you definitely want to get to know. Him and his wife started actually a company called People Processes. It's the leading provider of comprehensive HR solutions. Their complete HR program empowers organizations with a fully outsourced HR department, seamlessly integrating every role from associates to business partners and team managers. Rhamy is dedicated to empowering businesses to scale and have confidence and purpose. Him and his team, they actually work with hundreds of companies across the United States, helping them learn how to stop pushing paper and start prioritizing people. So Rhamy, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Roger.
This is going to be exciting. I've known you for some time. We've met on a number of occasions. So HR, it's definitely something that people deal with. What I'd like to do is start with your story, though. What got you into this position of actually serving businesses from an HR capacity? Tell us your story.
Oh, yeah. Well, like everybody else, there I am, 13 years old. It's Halloween. You dress up with a clipboard and like a finger waving. You go around, you be an HR agent.
There you go.
That's what I wanted to be.
You put on the glasses and you're set.
Yeah. I'm a nerd. I grew up in, actually started working when I was 13. I started in insurance sales. My grandmother was an insurance agent and I wanted to spend more time with her. So I cold called people turning 65 to ask them to meet with my grandmother about Medicare. That was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial journey. Started in that, went and got bachelor's in financial economics, master's degree in labor economics, and really thought I'd be in insurance. When the company started, we focused on employee benefits, that really kind of, that piece of compensation around major medical and 401ks and all those things. And I used my economics background to do big data analysis and create a labor strategy that actually would attract people. That was our business for quite a few years. We worked only with very large companies doing those sorts of benefits pieces.
Uh-huh.
Eventually, we acquired a payroll company because it was like, if we're doing this, maybe it'd be easier if we just knew what was going on in payroll. And then you're doing the payroll and the benefits, and they start asking you lots of HR questions. So about 7 years into the business, we acquired a small HR company, and then we kind of combined that all up. Again, large company was our focus. In 2018, we went down market, first to 100 to 1,000, and then all size, and really developed what we now call our complete HR program. Clients with fewer than 250 or so employees, we just do it. We step in as their HR department, and never thought that's what I'd be. I still think of myself as like a academic, as a nerd, as a data analysis, kind of creating structure in places where there isn't that will help you attract and retain and motivate employees. But in the end, what it also means, writing policies about locker rooms and stuff like that.
Well, I don't have a locker room, but I can definitely say the policies do matter. So I'm curious, when you talk to accounting professionals, I think this is very common. The first thing that you'll typically run into is many of our firms are typically smaller in size. So we're typically fewer than the 100 that you had, as you mentioned a moment ago. And in my mind, I remember in business being told that there's this threshold of about 50 employees where it becomes a little bit more important to really address this from a practical application. Before then, it's just kind of a as needed, if you will. What do you say about those who say, I'm just too small to make this a priority?
Well, for some people, they are too small. When I started my company, it was my wife and my mother and I, and none of them were going to sue me. So who cares? But I don't think 50 is the right number. Maybe that was, 25 years ago when when I was in school. But it's gone down, right? Compliance becomes a higher and higher risk now compared to even the 90s or early 2000s. And what I often look at is everything we do falls into two worlds. One is risk mitigation, right? So if you're the more people you have, the more complexity you have, the more likely you are at risk for a major compliance issue, right? If you're going to sell your company, grow it, that kind of thing, minimizing that risk is normally a worthwhile investment. And that's just pure lame risk minimization, right?
Okay.
And the bigger you are, the better that effect is, or the more necessary it is. The other side is return on labor. When you think about a 50-person company, if I can save every person in that company an hour, right, then I'm covering my bill pretty easy. But if you only have 5 and we're saving 1 hour a week, it's not as effective, right?
Yeah.
So all of it's true that HR matters the bigger you get. The more humans you have, the more the resources matter. But what I find is oftentimes in a small business, your accounting shop, you've got an expert at the top. His time is incredibly valuable. Her time is very valuable. And as soon as you reach even 5, 8, 10 employees, the act of management and structure around the people uh, becomes relatively time consuming, and doing it poorly has a really big effect. And another way to think about it is if you have 10 employees and you're not well structured so that 3 of them are underperforming, well, that's 30% of your labor force. It's difficult when you think about traditional HR. You got to hire like full-time grown-up experts, day-to-day administrators, the kind of pieces there. Our system and value scales with our clients. So we're able to enter at a much smaller market than most people are able to manage. You can't to really do HR, just a full-time person, maybe 60 grand a year, to like have an HR person. I agree. That's probably not something a 10-person company should do.
Yeah.
But with the ability of fractional, the world we live in now, we can make that happen a lot smaller and generate a much higher return on the labor, even when you only have 7, 8, 9 people.
Yeah, I appreciate your explanation of there's those 2 facets, one of which is the risk mitigation. I do feel that there's this people side of the business, and oftentimes we're just expecting people to work efficiently and be productive. But at the end of the day, there's this people element, and you have to have policies, procedures, be compliant as it relates to various labor laws. So I'm curious, now that there's a lot of businesses that have gone remote where we don't have everyone coming into the main office, we don't have different issues that we may have had in an office environment. What are the things that have come on the scene now that we have more remote workers? There's got to be, I'm assuming there's less sexual harassment and there's more something else.
That's exactly right. I haven't had anybody getting screwed in stairwells in the last little while, right? Like that was a big case we had. It was just a real problem with big office environments and venture capital firms. Made a lot of news.
Uh-huh.
But we don't have that as much. But what you do now have is the complexity of multi-state employment very quickly. A 7-person shop or a 10-person shop 20 years ago was never in 7 states. They weren't an employer dealing with workers' compensation regulation, break time attestations, different required leaves, required policies over all these different pieces in 7 different states with 7 employees. And that happens all the time now, right? So multi-state is just a total booger. Some states are monopolistic on their workers' comp. This state over here requires you provide leave for military caregivers. This one doesn't. This one has some sort of required break time or different overtime rules. And keeping ahead of that on a compliance side is a booger. On the other side, the return on labor side, right? You don't, management by walking around is not exactly the most common management style anymore, right?
Correct.
So when you think about return on labor, having more formalized performance management, onboarding structure, role definition, those sorts of things where you can judge work without putting your eyes on them, that's a big part of what we do now. And it was honestly less so quite a while ago because a lot of people were fine with a 10-person shop where the owner goes, I know what Jeff's doing. Jeff's doing a good job. What other performance management do I need?
Yeah, and I can see Jeff.
Right. But as you become remote, those formalized structures that a big business would have had anyway, because the owner can't see all 50 associates in the bottom of their org chart, they would have put that in place even if you were all in an office. Well, now a 10 or 20-person shop pretty much needs that because they're all working from home.
Yeah, I'm loving this because as accounting professionals, we love systems. We like efficiency, but I think we just tend to not really prioritize the HR side of things. We might have workflows, we might have these standard operating procedures, but I don't know that they go to the HR level that we're discussing here. And there are things like you indicated from a state to state level when it comes to the, say, unemployment insurance, different break
Sure.
policies. I mean, there's just a nuance of things that HR has, and as a profession, things that accounting professionals wouldn't necessarily be aware of. So I am curious, where does the HR prove itself to have an ROI aside from the risk mitigation?
Sure. So risk mitigation, there you go, set that aside. That's a cost. But when you sell, comes back to you, right? Um, the return on labor side is everything, right? So what we normally do when we take on a client, we spend a quarter or so just getting rid of the stupid stuff, right? The red flags. So there you are. You got 5 people in California. You don't have sexual harassment training. Is it fun? It's a waste of time, whatever, but it's required. If you don't do it, as soon as one of them's pissed at you, you're going to have a real problem, right? So we get rid of the stupid stuff. Then we're into the return on labor side. So think of it like this. If it currently takes you to bring an associate on from I need an associate to they're hired, that's your like time to hire, we can cut that in half. That's a return on labor. If we can more efficiently educate them on anything from the actual skills they need to the core values, the decision-making frameworks you do, the integration into the company culture, et cetera, so that they're useful to you as an associate 3 months in instead of 6 months, right?
Yeah. So you're accelerating that.
That's right. One of our key metrics is actually time to fire. How long from when a manager or an executive goes, dang, this is probably not the right hire? Can we shrink how long it takes us to make that decision, please? Right? So we often, in our kind of onboarding sections, one of the kind of key people processes is onboarding. There's lots of ways to do it compliance-wise, and there's lots of ways to do it better and better. But one of the things you want to do is incorporate a process that allows you to create judgment on that employee's effectiveness and fit earlier. And a lot of companies are really bad about that, especially professional services firms. They'll have some new person kicking around for 6 months before they really are able to be tested to see if they're actually good, right? So perhaps an improvement on your onboarding process is some way that we can really tell whether they're a decent fit or not, give you a better thing. So if you hire someone poorly, can we fire them faster? So those are all things that generate return on labor. Of course, turnover in general, right? Better benefits, figure out if we're communicating these things appropriately. We can lower turnover by 10%, of course, across the year. These are all places that HR gives you a huge advantage.
Yeah, you're hitting on some of the key things that I'm very familiar with. One is culture, obviously, if that fits there. The second is hire slow, fire fast, having a process in there to accelerate that. There's some cost savings as well. But it's then the KPIs that are associated with workflow efficiency. What are they doing, and are they doing it effectively and productively? So yeah, you're hitting on a lot of the key things that I would have expected. So I know one of your talking points happens to be one that is processes, moving from processes to people. And
Right.
it's this idea of, yeah, that's great that you've got the systems in place, but how does this really tie to the individual?
So you're an E-Myth revisited, you got to
Yeah.
make a recipe, right. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of businesses go through this journey and you can almost see where they get stuck. The journey from I make cakes to I have a business that makes cakes, that filters out 90% of business owners, right?
Yeah.
And the focus on that is standard operating procedures, workflows, creating an environment where the business can run itself pretty much without you. The issue is the novel. As you scale and grow, as you expose yourself to more markets, more ingredients, more suppliers, more clients, the novel will change constantly. When I started, I only worked in Tennessee. I only had one state to keep up with.
Yeah.
That wasn't near as much as 50 states, not to mention 1,300 individual tax jurisdictions. The pace of change just on the compliance side is ridiculous. Then throw in 100 clients versus 10, and their needs change. What that means is the SOP world gets you to a certain height. I normally see it around 20, 30 employees where it starts to break down. Could be as high as 50, depends on the industry. If you're a manufacturer, it's different than if you're a professional services firm. But the novel means you don't need to spend your time anymore on developing SOPs. You're now taking the next step up, which is developing the processes to create the people who develop the SOPs. It's like the one step further back. And as an executive or business owner, your world becomes creating the people that can actually run your business as opposed to creating the processes that the people do. And that's what people processes is. Of course, there's the compliance side and risk, return on labor and all that. But what you're effectively trying to do is get these people processes to the extent that you can go from an enthusiastic new hire to someone who would make the same decision as Roger when Roger doesn't have anything written down.
Interesting.
That's the goal. And if you can get there, then you've removed this next major bottleneck. And that's what I see. 50-person companies, 40-person, 60-person, they're dead because they haven't done that next level of building the processes that build the people, as opposed to building the processes that build the product.
Let's be honest, most of us didn't become bookkeepers or accountants to spend hours learning marketing systems and chasing leads. We did it to serve clients and build a business we love. But what if you could get better clients without the marketing overwhelm? That's exactly what Keepful does. It's the all-in-one marketing system built specifically for bookkeepers and accountants, and it works 24/7 behind the scenes to bring in leads, book consultations, and automate follow-ups. You get a professional website, branded consultation page, and follow-up automations all tailored to your business. No more duct taping tools together or hiring expensive marketing teams. If you want to grow your firm with ease and attract better clients without doing more work, go check out Keepful today at keepful.com. So, what are some of the early signs that a company might see that indicate that they have an HR related issue that's on the horizon?
So there are two. One, in the very small, the 10, 15-person group, the business owner is spending way too much time on people related tasks, not design, but transactions and dealing with the changes and blah, blah, blah. That means you probably need somebody in there. You may not need us. Maybe your office manager can do dual shift, whatever. I think we have a very compelling offer for that small group, but whatever. But you need to spend less time. Then you get to where that person is like at 30, 50 people, like they're not capable of taking you to that next level. The way you will see it in your organization is if you feel that you can go out and make the promise, right? You can get the client. You're confident in your processes to a degree, like these should work, but you're not confident that your people will execute them faithfully, or that if anything doesn't match the SOP, they're not going to be able to figure it out, or that you cannot attract or maintain the people that can do it, right? So there are some businesses where the biggest issue is not necessarily, they got it kind of figured out, but they're in such an environment where the constant issue is, well, Jackie, who dealt with that, is gone now, right? Or we've got the business coming in. We are often brought in by venture capital firms. They have a very strong idea of what they need. They've got 4 people. They need to get from 4 people to 100 in 8 months. That's a scaling HR, right? They need an expert in there to take care of that. That's something we would handle. And for those people, you can absolutely see the breakdown points that happen at 20 or 40 or 60 people each time.
So I'm curious, who in an organization, especially a smaller one, do you typically find yourself working with as a fractional HR person? Are you working with the payroll individual, the office manager, the owner?
Yeah, we're normally, so at the CHR program, again, kind of we're talking that like sub 200 market. We are normally reporting directly to the CEO or the owner. Sometimes it's the CFO, because maybe when they kind of started scaling, they put HR under finance, which is fine too. It's a decision-making executive that has the ability to spend money or approve like policies. We are in a couple groups where we're kind of reporting to someone a level lower than that, but it honestly doesn't work very well. 95% of the time, it's direct to the owner or the CFO.
And do you work directly with the employees at that point? I mean, are the employees interacting with your staff, or are they actually just...
Oh, no. We're the HR department. We call and welcome every new hire. We're getting them into the system. We're answering their timekeeping questions. We're the employee grievance department. We're managing mediations between managers. We're pulling timesheets and writing up incident reports. We're the HR department.
All right. So now I'm going to ask a question that is more or less maybe a personal one through experience.
Sure.
With HR, one of the things that I have found is that because the HR exists, it tends to stir the pot, not because they're stirring the pot, but because now people have a place that they can vent, they now begin venting. And so all of a sudden what happens is things that were beneath the surface, that were being more or less managed because there just wasn't anyone to talk to and there wasn't anyone to vent to, things just were just under the surface and people just dealt with it. But now there's someone that we can talk to. Everybody wants to talk to them and everybody wants to be the instigator of change and everybody wants to stir the pot. Now, I'm just kind of curious from an HR perspective, how do you now kind of not encourage or foster all this change where, we've been doing it this way for 5 years. Now that we've hired your services in the last 6 months, everything's changed. How would you
we don't
address
see it
that?
that much, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The HR can be a fifth column in your business. There's no doubt. It can mess you up, right? So I acknowledge your fear 100%. Like, I've seen it. And there are times where we're brought in because the HR person they've built the company with is the damn menace, right? It's like this.
They're the instigator.
Yeah. It's like, and also it's so difficult when it's inside your company. They know everybody's payroll. They know they know where everybody's buried. That's a difficult fire, right? We've been brought in multiple times to how do we get rid of the HR department?
Yeah.
Anyway, not that we don't love HR people and we don't work with HR people inside some of our clients. That's not, but sometimes they're the problem.
Yeah.
Here's what we find. Let's just pretend it's us or any HR structure. You're going in there and you're adding in HR. To some degree, you will surface more grievances, no doubt, right? My paycheck is always wrong, or this manager's always kind of, but the ones you're worried about are not the real ones. It's I don't like the way my coworker talks to me about right? Two things. One is you need good, experienced people who know how to take that as data and figure out if it's actually affecting your turnover, your ability to retain. Is it a real problem, right? When it's not a real problem, what you need often in those situations is to empower, and I hate that word, but grant authority to their direct manager and train them to nip that crap in the bud, right? So it's one thing to say if there's a real problem, but a lot of times what we find when we're brought in is maybe now some people think they have a way to kind of get around their manager. They have a way to expand and stir the pot. And we have to be judgmental and figure out when it's appropriate for them to go around and when it's not. And what that often means is actually making the managers more clear about what's inside their authority and what's not. And if you can grant that power, you'll actually see, I think a lot of times you see the grumbling go down in a lot of ways, except for the important stuff, which you do need.
There you go. Now, obviously, with risk mitigation, there's definitely something there that we need to, kind of rise to the surface and try and avoid those things. But you brought up data. And when you said data, that did trigger something with me, which is a good thing. That is, as accounting professionals, we like data. We like to take that data and create information from it. And from that information, learn and gain knowledge. Well, what's some of the HR data that we might be missing because we're not tracking or gathering it that we should be considering?
Sure. Well, each section of the business has different ones, but for example, every one of we manage everything through kind of tickets, which is just our internal way, but it's phone calls and conversations and video chats. Incident flags we commonly use. So we look at things like for every payroll, right? How many transactions are there, and are there any incidents related to them, right? So miscalculated payrolls, missed new hires, bad proration, bad bank account, whatever. So we're constantly internally, and this is shared with our clients, what are our metrics on delivering payroll accurately and appropriately, right? That's an easy example.
Yeah.
For things broader like HR, we of course are looking at headcount, turnover, new hires, average tenure, all those pieces. And I think you should. The data pieces are always transactions, they're interactions. So if you're looking at an organization as its CFO, one thing that we are able to track is employee incidents, which is where a manager writes down an employee's late, had a problem with them, didn't do the thing. The implementation of a broader performance management system gives you a lot of data to look into. And from the employee perspective, we also track any grievances, is what we call them, but it's any complaint that goes into HR, and you're looking for trends, right? Are there clusters? Are they around particular topics? And that grants you a lot of data-driven insight that you can actually work with. The key with that is you need a good system. It needs to be actually used consistently across the organization. And that's where it's very difficult for an office manager to accomplish those things.
Yeah.
It has to be efficient. It can't be too time consuming. They need to integrate with various pieces to make it actually worthwhile. Otherwise, you're just wasting a lot of time writing stuff down.
Yeah. One of the things that we've already said, but I'd like to dive into it now, is culture. Culture is this ethereal, this is how we do it around here kind of a thing. A lot of it's unwritten, it's unspoken, it's just the way we are. With regards to culture, there's obviously this onboarding, the hiring of, am I finding a good culture fit? But there's also then the managing of, there's things that are on the fringe. This isn't really in alignment with who we are and what we're doing. But what I wanted to get to is the fact that in HR, one of the things that we're trying to do is mitigate things. So we've got policies, we've got procedures, we've got this whole idea of hiring and training. What I want to know is how, from an HR perspective, especially with remote employees, do we address this culture discussion? What are we missing?
Yeah. Culture is a process like anything. Let's define it. You mentioned one way of defining it. The way we define culture goes very much to kind of what we talked about the goal of having an employee is, which is their decisions, their actual behaviors reflect what you want in the absence of direct instruction. Okay? That's culture. Culture is nobody's looking, what are you doing? All right? So what we have to do for that is we look at, again, these are developed in stages. Step 1, don't go to jail, right? Let's get rid of the stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And step 2, let's do the little things that get you a long way, like define those behaviors. We call them core values. That's the HR term for it. But define those behaviors in such a way that we actually have something to judge against. So a lot of companies are not even there yet. Their core values statement is ridiculous, or their core values are, look, I'm not going to knock on it. Diversity and inclusion. That's not a behavior. Right? A core value is responsiveness. Can a manager with a definition of responsiveness go, that employee is responsive? That one's not. That's core values, right? That's the culture. So we define those. And then the process is built up over time from telling employees what they are to managing their performance and rating them on it to providing consistent reminders or stories around them, perhaps peer reviews that nominate the avatar of responsiveness every month, automating the sharing of those stories, all the way up to rewards or bonuses based around them. So you can develop the process piece by piece by piece by piece over time to make that culture, which are defined behaviors, more present and rewarding and obvious over time. And that's an example of there's a people process, right? You're going from what is it to we kind of do it to we do it okay to we invest tens of thousands of dollars every month in something just like this so that we have very clear behavioral guidelines and we know. And what are we doing? We're moving it from where 25% of people adhere to it to 75%, 80% adhere. And the ones who don't, you can identify quickly. That's the win. And that's a huge return. That's huge. And changes your business entirely.
Yeah, well, there's a few things here that I'd like to tap into. One of which is I've worked with the same company now for nearly 30 years. So that's 3 decades. And in that time, I've become very acquainted with our culture here. And being president now for over a decade, I've clearly put my fingerprint on what I feel our culture is. Well, there are a few things here that I can definitely say have evolved over time. When I began with the company, we were wearing suits and ties. It was very, very formal. It was very professional. I remember distinctly the time that we moved away from wearing suit coats to eventually having a dress down Friday. I remember all these things over these 3 decades. And today, I'd be hard pressed to say when the last time I was wearing a tie to work. It's probably been a number of years that I've worn a tie to work. But the idea is some of this is written down, some of it's not. And some of the things that have been written down have been we respond in kind to all communications within 24 hours or less. So if I get an email, I respond to an email via email. If I get a phone call, I respond with a phone call. Those types of things. But there are the unspoken things that I think are very, very telling, which is, like you indicated earlier, is that individual going to respond to the situation as I would? And that's really hard to actually try and bring out of individuals of, you're an ambassador for the company, you're interacting, you're forward facing with our clientele. What would Roger do in that situation? Well, it's not all about me, but I think that point you were making earlier is illustrative of, yes, I want you to be an individual as an employee of the company, but at the same time, you're representing the business. And there is something going on here that as the ambassador, as the representative, you need to have some continuity between whether it's them or someone else. We all would have responded similarly. Isn't that fair?
That's it. And again, your twist, whether you use smiley faces or not, maybe that's part of your culture, maybe it's not. Maybe one thing that I often tell people, and this goes to policy development too, right? Whether you're what you spend the time locking in is the stuff you don't want variation in. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't write a policy that you're going to break 4 times out of 5. That's very silly. Don't lock in suit culture if you don't really care about that, right? But if you don't lock it in, it will drift. And that's an important part. Like, one reason your culture, your dress code, let's call it, has changed because y'all didn't lock it in. You didn't recruit for it. You didn't maintain it. You didn't educate on it. You didn't judge performance by it. No one cared. Maybe there was some small, slight resistance in the beginning here and there, but you didn't lock it in. And whether that's important in your organization or not is up to you. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. But most people don't. But a lot of businesses do. And that's one where, again, that would be something that we'd want to enforce. And even now, and perhaps even more so today, where it is so rare to find a formal code business, right? That may be a differentiator. That's the way to get your 3% of the hires that really want that.
Mm-hmm.
They want to dress up every day. And maybe that's something you do want to enforce. And then it's about keeping it in there. So you define your core values. It's not about being about Roger. You're exactly right. We have a couple different exercises that our BPs, our business partners, are trained on to figure out. Because a lot of times you talk to a business owner, it's like, what behaviors do you really care about? And what they tell you is a lie. They have no idea. Right? They have no idea what they care about. So the best way we actually find to do it is to actually interview them about different employees, what they like and what they don't like. Right?
Yep.
Tell me about the idiot that makes you roll your eyes. Right? Like they rant. You write all that down. Right? Oh, I love when Roger walks in the room. Every time he does, this is what's going on. And I know if he's messaging me, it's this and that. And then we're taking from that and extracting what they actually care about.
The turnkey marketing and sales process to getting accounting clients with confidence. The Universal CRM is in fact a tool designed for accounting professionals to help them automate the process to the point of not only finding potentially new clients, but having meetings and getting new engagements to retain them as clients. This process is made up of using specific tools such as CRMs, email marketing, text messaging, sales pipelines, forms, and funnels, as well as reputation management and social proof, getting the testimonials that you need online to substantiate your skills and services. All of these tools and technologies are leveraged to your benefit using the Universal CRM. Go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. So with regards to accounting firms, I know you have partnerships with accounting firms where you actually do things with them, especially to extend your services to their clients and have a partnership to accomplish that. I'm kind of curious, not that this is intended to, in the podcast, be a sales pitch, but I'm just curious to tell a little bit about that because many of my listeners may be saying to themselves, great conversation, wonderful information, but at the end of the day, I'm still 3 people. So yeah. I'm 10 people. I don't need this. So I just want to address that this is relevant because so many of us as accounting professionals have clients that clearly are businesses that have staff and may not see the value of the HR, but yet from a payroll perspective and accounting perspective, we might have perspectives or insights that lend us to say, actually, you actually do need some HR help in your business. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's the number one way we grow is CFOs and CPAs referring us. A couple of business attorneys that are worried about mergers and stuff like that. But that's what we do. And the reason is CPAs and CFOs are, as advisors to their client, they're often aware of the problems. And often, one of the primary things that's keeping a business from growing is its people or the processes around creating those people. And you're aware of them. Sometimes it's the owner spends 10 hours a week doing HR crap. I want you to stop that. There's your 8-person referral. Sometimes it's you're in a 30-person company and it's like, they're coming to me with, I've got 25 people as independent contractors that shouldn't be. What do I do? It's like, it's a problem. That's a real problem. HR can fix that, but it ain't fun. And so what we find is that that's really how we grow. And the primary reason, by the way, has nothing to do with the market fit. The real truth of the matter, Roger, this is the truth. I worked with really big companies. I knew how to sell to them. When I went down market, I couldn't tell the difference between a tire shop that would be hell to work with and is never going to grow, and one that is a burgeoning, going concern business. And I can't really tell. And I don't want that many clients. So what we found the best differentiator was if a trusted advisor referred us in, we had relatively good results, that these were legitimate businesses that cared about not going to jail and growing and scaling. So of all the different ways we marketed, whether it was direct, online, going to conferences, all these things, what we found is partners. It wasn't cheaper to attract through partners by any means, but our retention was higher, our client satisfaction was higher, and our internal ratings of that client were higher. And the biggest differentiator was they have a CPA or CFO say, you guys should fix this. They care, right? Whereas otherwise, when you're doing broad marketing about the stuff, obviously people is a huge concern. And so they may come to you because they're like, I'm tired of doing payroll. It's like, well, okay, we can help with that. But then they don't want to think about recruiting, onboarding, offboarding, performance management, benefits, compensation, alumni management, retirement programs, profit sharing. They don't care. And so it wasn't a great fit. If you come to us with, I want to fix my people, we got a lot to do.
Very good. So I'm curious as to the management that exists in the organization, not so much the owner, but the management that may exist that right now is getting those types of conversations, is having these discussions with the employees, is dealing with morale type things and so forth. How does that transition when hiring you, that those types of conversations are no longer happening, and that savings that you referred to, the hour a week of this and an hour a week of that, disappears in the company and is actually going through your organization? How do you actually cause that to pivot?
Well, we don't always, to be clear. I don't always want... management is still the structure. You still want true leadership and workload management. We kind of break it in our kind of structure. We think of it as people leadership and task leadership, right?
Okay.
Both of those should be their direct manager. If you're a manager and you have 7 direct reports, you should know them, know how to motivate them, know how to have tough conversations, and know how to manage the workload appropriately between them given their competency. But they probably don't have the structure to do that very efficiently or well, right? And that's where we come in. So we're going to take some administrative stuff off of them, sure, but that's just, you're not the one sitting down to help them fill out paperwork. When they have a maternity leave, they have someone to call other than you. There's that, and that can be significant. But the main thing is putting in place the structure so that when they get to the manager, they have a track to run on. They know what they're supposed to learn. It's automated. It's easy to access. It's efficient. It's effective. Their performance reviews are consistently done on time. They are actually relevant. Their benefits, their pay raises, they make sense in a broader structure. And again, in an 8-person company, that's all just maintained by the business owner looking at it, right? So some of that stuff isn't necessarily going to be particularly worthwhile. But we do need to take care of the things that are holding them back so that they can grow to be a 30-person company or an 80-person company where that stuff becomes really, really important.
I love this. This is really good. I want to ask, you said at the very beginning, or at least I did, that you started this business with you, your wife, and if I'm not mistaken, your mother.
My mom.
Yeah. What does your wife think of this now that you've got this thriving business, that you're servicing so many clientele? What does she think of what you've been able to build and how that's been with your relationship?
Oh man, it's been a thing. It's been tough, honestly. We worked together. We met when we were 16 in high school theater, and she was the stage manager and I was the technical director. And we have worked together every day of our lives since we were 16 years old. I mean, all day, every day. Renovated houses, sold cell phones in college. It's just, we've always worked together. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. When my 3-year-old was born was the first time she stepped back from the company.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my oldest daughter was born, we were both back to work in 3 days. It was like, we got stuff to do. But on the second, it was like, okay, we're successful. Let's do the stay-at-home mom thing. And the org chart at the time was 31 people reporting to her and 3 people reporting to me, just to be clear. She ran the company. She's the operator. She's the stage manager, right?
Yep.
Make it work no matter what. The show must go on. redundancy. There's a fire. That's Liz. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. When she left, it was tough. The last 3 years have been really hard. I'm not near as good at it as she is. That's the truth. Luckily, she had a great team of directors under her already that when they started reporting to me, I knew them very well, but they started reporting to me more. And it hasn't been absolutely terrible, but it's not been wonderful. She loves the business, but she loves my 3-year-old son a whole lot more. And it's been a wild change, moving from her sitting right there and us always working together every day to her raising a family and me being part of it too. I am a good father, I swear. But I like to work 45 or 50 hours a week, and then Liz gets to run the family and the household.
Very good. How about your mom? What does she think of all this?
She's happy as a lark. She was an insurance agent since the 80s. And so when the company started taking off, she helped me. She did a lot of enrollment. And then I guess it was about 6 years ago, right when Liz was first pregnant, she retired. And now we have my daughter Marie is the oldest at 5. Between my 3 other siblings, we have a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 0 on the grandchild front. And that's my mother. So they've both become homebodies, and now I'm left running this monster that we created, and they were instrumental in without them. But they are very proud, and we are more successful than we ever thought. Both Liz and I came from lower middle class. My dad worked at the post office. We never thought we'd be successful the way we are.
Yeah, you're doing amazing, and congratulations for that, because I think what you've accomplished here is very important, and clearly every business needs this at one level or another. So it's definitely very relevant. Here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to try and wrap this up a little bit here. And in doing so, I'm going to begin, first of all, with an offer. I'd like my audience to actually take advantage of this. What we have here and something that Rhamy is very, very kind in offering happens to be something that you all should take advantage of. It's going to be in the episode description. It's basically to evaluate your services. There's an HR partnership program for financial professionals, accounting professionals, that I'd like you to go check out. This gives you a chance to not only consider it for your own services, but more importantly for your clients. And it's something that you can benefit from, but more importantly, help your clients implement. And in doing so, actually address one of the key components of their business, which is, we always say it, what is the greatest asset within any company? And it's obviously the employees. And so what we want to do is just basically make sure that we're doing ourselves from a cost mitigation standpoint, covering our assets, and at the same time, taking care of those assets that we have to make sure that they're as efficient, productive, and profitable as possible. And if we can do that, that's obviously in the scope of what Rhamy is offering here. So definitely check out what that offer is. You can do so by going to the episode description, and I encourage you to definitely check that out. Now, what did not come up in this conversation is the fact that Rhamy will be at GrowCon. He's going to be speaking, and I'm excited to hear what Rhamy has to say, because what we're discussing, I think, is so relevant to the success of the business. Why? Because every business is made up of one or more employees, and we all have needs. There's the risk mitigation side of things that we need to be compliant with, but at the same time, we need to be leveraging as best we can the culture that we're creating to be efficient and profitable. So he's going to be addressing a number of those things from the stage, and I'm excited to hear what he has to offer. Now, as it relates to the offer, this podcast is sponsored by Universal Accounting Center. And so as a sponsor, they're putting forth something that I think you really need to check out, and it's the Turnkey Business Plan for Accounting Professionals. It is the how-to guide to actually build the premier accounting firm in your area. It's addressing things ranging not only from marketing, selling, pricing, but it's getting into things that you need to consider as to the services you're offering and what it is you're doing to build that service where you're offering quality accounting services and getting paid what you're worth. So go check out the Turnkey Business Plan and get your copy of that today. It is free. Now, as a summary of the conversation here, before I go to Rhamy for his closing thought, I'd really like to point out that the evolution of the business was quite profound. Obviously, he started when he indicated that he was 13 years of age. That's wonderful. Obviously, his family was that of the insurance business, so he's in the insurance world, and that makes sense to then see opportunities as it relates to not only getting in and offering HR type benefits, but then to do payroll and start this HR business. That evolution was quite impactful. But really what really resonated with me was the idea that when we were talking about things, he was quick to discern the difference between the risk mitigation side of the HR and really working with the people to help them become their best, help them thrive and be successful, helping the management kind of get away from some of the things that are maybe holding them back from working on the things that are essential to the business, the petty things, and helping the HR get into those things that are allowing the people to thrive and be successful. So I thought that was a really nice contribution to the conversation. The other thing that I thought was very helpful is the data points. The fact that in HR, there are also data that we can be tracking and following. And as we look at the way those data points come together, we're learning about our business, what things need attention, what things need to be fixed, what things need to actually be improved. And as we're listening to those things that HR is able to pay attention to, we're able to then improve the business. And one of the things that was very relevant to me is the fact that we've moved our business from being an office location to a lot of remote workers in various states. And he was quick to point out that as businesses have changed and gone from, let's say, 7 employees in his example, working at an office, very simple, you see everyone, to now 7 employees working in 7 states with 7 different things that they need to be compliant with. That's a real big difference to what it was back in the 90s as I would have been familiar. So that was something that really stood out to me, is the fact that as we've grown our business, yeah, I've actually expanded. And yes, I'm no longer just in a single location. So I need to consider these things as I'm running my company. Now, as to accounting, I thought this was very helpful because one of the things that really resonates with us is we do like efficiencies, we like processes. And he was able to talk about how in HR, they're looking at how to better streamline the onboarding, finding the right employee, getting them onboarded as quickly as possible, productive and efficient as quickly as possible, but also accelerating that termination process as well. All these things make for not only a more profitable employee, but a more effective and efficient organization. And so a lot of those things were really relevant, I felt, to the conversation today. The last thing that I thought was very helpful is the fact that he was able to speak of how this is a partnership program that you can actually consider, because as accounting professionals, I think as we look into our clients, we see so many of these needs that exist, but we don't offer HR services. And rather than getting sucked into these types of situations that clearly may be holding back the company, may actually have financial ramifications, we're able to now actually consider perhaps Rhamy's services as it relates to fractional HR services. So lots of great things that came into today's conversation. So Rhamy, what would you like to leave as a closing thought?
Well, one thing I think we skipped over a little bit that I'd like to, that a lot of the reasons CPAs and CFOs refer us financial professionals is also just the whole world of job costing and tracking, right? Speaking of data points, right? It gets complicated. Locations, jobs, projects, all those pieces. And having strong insight into that huge chunk of your P&L, the labor side, is a big part of the true world that when you hire us, it makes the finance world look better, right? You have so much more data. And it's also why we like working with our referral partners, because when you have an idiot CPA on the team who doesn't understand any of this stuff, drives us crazy too. So we like working with you guys. Closing thought would simply be that as an entrepreneur listening, you got to get people in the door, you got to get clients, you got to build your SOPs. But when you start feeling that part break down, the next thing to focus on is your people. And as a referring partner, I would just encourage you to take a look at your book, check us out, and sign up to be a partner. There's no cost to that. And we have significant benefits that I think would actually help you generate another revenue stream inside your business while tying you closer to your client. The nice thing about these partners is accounting, it's sticky, but it's not as sticky as everybody's paycheck, everybody's time off, their employment records, those kind of things. And so when we approach them together, we both become a bit stickier. And so I think that's a cool idea that comes from the unification of your professional partners like we are.
Excellent explanation of that. Yeah, you definitely become stickier. You're more integral to the success of that business, and you're playing a part in now the day-to-day operations of it in so many ways. So very well said there. This has been a great conversation, something that I've really been looking forward to, and I'm glad that we've had. So Rhamy, thanks for being on the show. As for my listeners, as you're listening here, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, I want to encourage you to do so. So get out the phone, the computer that you're looking at, and subscribe. Set that. do the follow, set your notifications. Why? Because each and every week we actually come up with a new episode, listening to and speaking with the experts that we need to consider as we're building the premier accounting firm. Now, in addition to that, I want to invite you to GrowCon. As I mentioned, Rhamy's going to be speaking at GrowCon. It is a conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. This is a conference you do not want to miss. As an event, what we actually do is we have individuals come and speak to us as to things that we need to be doing to build the premier accounting firm in our area, addressing things ranging from marketing to grow our business, from things as to the services that we're offering to make sure that we're actually offering what the clients need, and more importantly, have that stickiness component. And then lastly, are we working efficiently and profitably? Are there better ways to do the work to take care of our clients and do so profitably? So you definitely want to understand these things as it relates to your business and stay top of mind as you are growing what I refer to as the premier accounting firm in your area. Now, as it relates to GrowCon, I also want to encourage you to come because there are your peers, these individuals like you who are doing the business just as you are, growing the business, offering bookkeeping, accounting, and tax services. There's wonderful opportunities to network, make friendships, collaborate, take care of your clients, and at the same time, get some R&R, much needed. Therefore, you can come and kind of relax in a few settings. And then lastly, you get to meet my team, those individuals here at Universal Accounting Center who are committed to help you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. So join us for GrowCon, and I look forward to seeing you there. As it relates to this podcast, it is sponsored by Universal Accounting. If you'd like to learn more about what it is you can be doing to become a professional bookkeeper, professional tax preparer, professional profit and growth expert, whereas you're actually servicing your clients or training your staff to do so confidently, check us out. Go to universalaccountingschool.com. There you'll find more information regarding the various trainings and programs that we offer. Definitely consider those and see what it is you can be doing to grow your business and get paid what you're worth. As it relates to this and other topics, if there's anything that struck you, definitely go to universalaccounting.com. You can find free resources. Also check out the podcast section where we have highlights, various playlists that you can put together and listen to the past shows that we've done, diving into those things that matter most to you, or give us a phone call. You can actually give us a call at 801-265-3777 and speak with us as it relates to specifically your company and what it is we might be able to do to help point you in the right direction and move you along as you're working on your business. So with all that being said, thank you for listening. Enjoy yourselves out there. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Take care. Have a great day.